Good morning, everyone. My name is Megan Lavoda. Now today, I want to talk to you guys about a concept called holding space for someone else's opinion. Now, you probably have heard of the concept of holding space, probably in the context of holding space for another person in general, or holding space for another person's emotions. Now, if you haven't, a lot of times this is mentioned in circles such as psychotherapy, psychology, life coaching, therapy, self-help, that sort of space. The idea is that to hold space for someone's emotion would be to allow their emotion to be as it is. So, hold space as in allowing that other person's emotion to take up space, to feel, to breathe, without infringing upon that emotion. So you might have heard of that before, and if not, I encourage you to just sort of do a quick Google search and look it up, because that's not the topic of this video. What I'd like to talk about today is that while you should also hold space for people's emotions, you also should for people's opinions as well. Now, something that I think that I naturally do all the time, and that a lot of ENFJs do, is called giving people the benefit of the doubt. Now, this trait of giving people the benefit of the doubt can be a good or bad thing. It can definitely be taken to an extreme, where you're giving everyone the benefit of the doubt, and people can screw you over that way if you don't have your strong boundaries in place, and if you allow other people to influence you whenever you are just always giving people the benefit of the doubt. But there is a good quality about this trait of giving people the benefit of the doubt, which is that if you're giving people the benefit of the doubt, then you are making the assumption that they have a perspective that is valid, they have opinions that are valid, they had an intention that was valid, and that their experience influenced their behavior in a way that perfectly made sense in their head. It is honoring the fact that whenever people have different personalities than you, or different experiences than you, or different goals than you, or different values than you, then they might act in a different behavior that you might deem to be inappropriate, or incorrect and wrong, or harmful, or any of those things. And even if you deem it to be that way, you can still give the person the benefit of the doubt in assuming that they don't have a malicious intent, that their intent stems directly from their experiences, their goals, their values, and that to them in their head, if you were going to step into their brain, their actions made complete sense to them. And I personally believe this about every single person. Everyone's actions make complete sense. But there's an issue whenever, if everyone's actions makes complete sense to them, then how come there are wars, and how come there are disagreements, and how come there are, division within us in society? And I think that that's because just because something makes sense to you doesn't mean it makes sense to the whole. And the only way to really understand the universal truth in the whole, the all, is to really allow people to have their own perspective, so that then we can all learn from their other experiences and grow together. So this concept of holding space for another's opinion is similarly to, if you were to hold space for someone's emotion and they were going through a rough time, like they had a death in the family, or they're going through a breakup, or something else traumatic happened to them, then you would probably hold space and allow them to feel whatever they want to feel. You wouldn't tell them, well, no, you're supposed to be crying right now because this is a sad thing. Or, oh, you're not supposed to feel this way. You're not supposed to feel guilty. I recently went through a death in the family, and the thing that I was always told is that there's no right or wrong way to grieve. That is a perfect example of holding space for an emotion. But to hold space for an opinion would be to look at somebody's opinion, knowing that there is truth somewhere within that opinion, even if you don't agree with it, you don't agree with the way it's executed, you have a different philosophy on things, you can still see that from their perspective that they had some sort of logic that they went through. And I think that allowing somebody else to have a different opinion from you and allowing them to be in the same space as you is really, really beneficial for growth. I do not think that it is as beneficial to not allow space and to just walk away from the situation, because if we do not allow somebody else to have a different opinion than you sitting next to you in that same bubble and in that same space, then all we're going to do is not want to cause conflict or not want to cause waves with that person, and then go off to find other people that are completely agreeing with everything you have to say and feeding you in confirmation bias. It's really beneficial to surround yourself with people that have different goals and values and belief systems and opinions and worldviews and philosophies. And whenever you are comfortable enough in what you believe that you can step into a space that is shared with somebody else with different beliefs, then that is a great environment for growth, because you're allowing them, you're recognizing that they too are allowed to have their own opinion. But that doesn't take away from what you're fighting for. And sorry, my eyes are watery this morning. I didn't get enough sleep. But it doesn't have to take away from what you're fighting for. If you are holding space for another person's opinion and then they aren't holding space for yours, you are not obligated to stay in that space, in that situation. It is okay to completely put yourself first in that situation. If you do not feel like you're being listened to, if you don't feel like there's mutual respect in that space, then you don't have to be in that space. And unfortunately, a lot of times, like I said, number one, we avoid growth. We avoid our ideas being refined because we don't want to be in the same space as people who disagree with us, because we feel disrespected and misunderstood by people who disagree with us. But what if we lean in to that misunderstanding? What if we lean into that misunderstanding with mutual respect, and you really genuinely try to understand what that person is saying without summing it up in your head, without really listening to what they're saying. Listening is key here. Mutual respect is also key, and so is listening. You have to listen to the other person's perspective and recognize that they have something to add. If you treat people who disagree with you with the regard of, oh, well, they're just being defensive, or they're just getting emotional, or they don't know what they're talking about, then you've already lost. You're already missing out on a learning opportunity here. Because if you are telling yourself that they're being emotional, they're in denial, that they don't know what they're talking about, that they are contradicting themselves, that they are being hypocritical, then you are talking way more about them than about your perspective, and you're already hindering the learning and growth process that comes from two different opinions being right next to each other. And that is the sort of environment that I want to cultivate in my life, on my channel, on my Facebook page, or in my Facebook group that I will talk about later. I want an environment where different ideas can coexist, so that we can refine our own and learn from one another. The same thing happens with personality type, where NF types stick with NF types because thinkers invalidate their emotions, and sensors invalidate their ideas. And SJs don't hang out with SPs because they don't like risk. You know, like there are all these things that you could say. Thinkers might not want to be around feelers because they think that they are over dramatizing everything. You know, whenever we seclude ourselves, then that's only going to create more division and more conflict. But whenever you might think that being around each other with different opinions or different personalities might cause like more conflict, because when you're away the conflict doesn't exist. That's not how it works. Like, you have to be in the same space in order to even understand what that person is reacting to or what they're thinking or feeling. So yeah, I really encourage you all watching to not respond to things with the attitude that you already know where someone is coming from without giving them the benefit of the doubt of a perspective. I've gotten lots of comments since I've started YouTube of people claiming that they know me more than I know myself, or that they know what I'm trying to say more than I do, when I admit that I have room to grow as far as expressing my ideas. I don't always do it in the most concise manner. I don't always provide the best examples. I don't always explain myself well, but it's to assume that you know where I'm coming from means that you've already lost on the learning and the growing process. And I encourage an environment where people can agree to disagree. You can listen to me talk and you might disagree with something that I've said, and you could comment and tell me exactly why you disagree, and I would absolutely love that. I love those sort of comments. But to tell me you haven't studied this because you have this opinion and this book says this is already cutting off the learning process. That is exactly the opposite from leaving space for somebody else's different opinion. If you are claiming that that you are the only one that has the opinion, and you're not curious about how other people formed their opinions even when they're different from you, then you've already lost. So that is, in a gist, the concept of holding space for differing opinions. I believe that we should hold space for different opinions. I believe that that's how growth occurs. And just to be clear, that this is not in contrast to holding space for emotions. You can hold space for opinions and for emotion at the same time. Some people might be better at one than the other, or might think it's hard to do both because it might seem like you're using different parts of the brain, but it is entirely possible these things are not on two ends of a spectrum. So, yeah, I want to encourage disagreements, respectful disagreements. I do not agree with people shoving things under the rug or running away from conflict when it happens. Sure, there are times that you don't need to make a big deal out of things, but if there is a learning opportunity, if there is a misunderstanding between two people, that you guys can sort of lean into that discomfort and try and understand one another, then I absolutely recommend that, because I've had some of the best conversations from doing that, and I've learned the most about myself based on how I'm noticing myself react to other people. It's completely different from just watching how I react when I'm talking to my best friends or my family. Whenever I'm talking to someone who doesn't necessarily like what I stand for, and I can see what sort of feelings and thoughts come up when I'm talking to them, or how they react to me or how I react to them, that is a great way to learn about what do I stand for. Because, some people, you might not know what you stand for if you're always talking to people that already stand for what you stand for. So, if any of you guys are curious about this topic or more, or Myers-Briggs stuff, or personality stuff, socionics, Enneagram, please join my Facebook group, Personality Typology for Self-Growth. This idea of holding space for other people's feelings and their thoughts, I meant to say thoughts first, but also, feelings. I could talk about that in another video if you'd like. that idea is something that I really, really value, that I hope is shown in my Facebook group. I want to encourage learning, and I want to encourage people challenging one another's opinions in a respectful manner so that they aren't just trapped in thinking one way and that they are willing to expand their brain. So anyway, if you're interested in that, please join my Facebook group below. Please subscribe if you like these sort of videos, and have a wonderful day.